You know, in a world that's just overflowing with anxiety, constant distraction, and our attention being pulled in a million directions, we usually find ourselves desperately looking for some kind of profound stability, right? Well, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to explore what it really means to cleave to the Lord and abide in perfect love. We're taking a bit of a journey today, going all the way from the nuances of first century Greek texts straight into the fires of 18th century Methodist revivals. We'll uncover the profound depths of Christian living and hopefully discover a permanent anchor for the soul.
To do that, we've got a pretty straightforward roadmap today. We'll start with the Greek word menei, move into John Wesley's concept of perfect love, then check out Charles Wesley's lyrical theology, and wrap it all up with what it looks like living as a real Christian. Let's dive in.
All right, section 1, the Greek word menei, understanding abiding.
So here's a massive question for us. How can we truly know if we are in God? I mean, this isn't just some abstract theological puzzle you do for fun. It's really the ultimate and honestly sometimes agonizing question of the human soul. For centuries, believers, scholars, and everyday folks like us have wrestled deeply with this idea of assurance. Like, how do you actually know you belong? Well, it turns out the answer to that incredible struggle actually hinges on a single, super powerful Koine Greek word found right in the ancient text of 1 John chapter 4, verse 16.
And that word is menei. If you're looking at Strong's Concordance, it's G3306. It translates beautifully as abides, remains, or literally a permanent state of fidelity. Now, what's really crucial here is that this isn't just about swapping out vocabulary words across languages. It represents a massive foundational theological shift. We are being called to a permanent state of fidelity, not just a temporary emotional high or a quick weekend visit to a place of peace. It's the absolute goal of the whole spiritual journey. An unchanging, rock-solid connection with the divine that literally alters how you walk through the world.
What's absolutely fascinating about the vocabulary of the Greek New Testament is how early Christians took these existing, pretty standard Greek words and just breathed incredible, profound new meaning into them. Think about how radical this shift was. They took an everyday word for just, staying or remaining in a physical location and elevated it to express a totally new spiritual reality. For them, menei became the ultimate description of divine fellowship. In an ancient world that was full of these highly transactional relationships with unpredictable, capricious gods, this idea of permanently dwelling within a loving God and having that God dwell within you, that was a world-changing paradigm shift for the early church.
Moving on to section 2, John Wesley's perfect love, casting out fear.
So let's jump forward a few centuries. John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, actually leaned heavily on this exact Greek concept to spark a theological revolution in the 18th century. In his explanatory notes on the New Testament, he wrote this really definitive, striking truth. He said, "Perfect love casts out all slavish fear." Wesley's super precise logical prose takes that ancient concept of menei, that unbroken abiding, and frames it as the ultimate state of a believer's heart. Now, when Wesley said slavish fear, he meant the terrifying dread of a master punishing a slave, a kind of fear rooted in an unpredictable view of God. But the flip side, when you are securely abiding in God's love, that profound anxiety simply cannot coexist. Wesley paints this incredibly stark, powerful contrast for us. On one side, you've got slavish fear. This is a state totally defined by the dread of punishment, deep anxiety, and what the book of James calls being double-minded. It's like a heart at word with itself, right? Plagued by a divided will that desperately wants to serve the self while simultaneously trying to appease God. It's exhausting. And the permanent solution to that exhaustion is perfect love. This state is all about total stability, a pure single eye, focused solely on God, and of course, that permanent abiding, that menei. Wesley taught that our fundamental problem is this war of a divided will, and the stabilizing solution is to just entirely resign yourself to God's love, completely eliminating that toxic mixture of self-will.
Which brings us to section 3, lyrical theology, the hymns of Charles Wesley.
Okay, so now we shift from the analytical, logical mind of John Wesley over to the emotional, poetic heart of his brother Charles. Charles managed to capture his brother's dense theological doctrines about perfect love and that abiding nature of God and put them into lines that regular congregations could actually sing. He wrote, "Love divine, all loves excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down." Just listen to the depth of those words. Charles took the towering intellectual frameworks of his brother and turned them into stunning lyrical poetry. He ensured that the theology of the Methodist movement wasn't just, read in dusty books, but actually felt deep in the human spirit.
Honestly, this synergistic dualism between the brothers was just absolute genius. Charles used these hymns to translate dense theological notes, create deep emotional resonance, make complex doctrine incredibly memorable, and cultivate a pure desire for holiness. Singing these truths acted as a bridge between head knowledge and heart knowledge. By taking that Greek concept of Menei, the idea of the single eye, and setting it all to music, he made it emotionally resonant for everyday people, folks working in mines, fields, and factories. The doctrine literally became a part of them simply because they sang it together.
All right, final stop, Section 4, Living as a Real Christian, Practical Divinity.
So, what does this all mean for us? How do we actually translate these centuries-old concepts into practical divinity for our own daily lives? Well, here are some actionable steps for living this out right now. Step 1. Cultivate a single eye. Basically, this means intentionally focusing your desires purely on God and actively getting rid of that double-minded vacillation that just drains our energy. Step 2 is to deny self-will. Now, in our modern world where the ego is constantly celebrated, this is pretty radical. John Wesley taught that human self-will and God's will are active adversaries. You literally have to consciously surrender it. And step 3, practice fraternal love. Let your genuine care and love for others be the primary visible evidence that you are walking in the light and actively abiding, living out Menei every single day.
And practicing these steps diligently, it leads to a fundamental change of moral character that corresponds to a totally new inner reality. This inward transformation is actually what the Greek text in Romans 12 calls metamorphos thei, a fundamental total metamorphosis of character. Think of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. It isn't just outward behavioral modification, it leads to total internal consistency. It ensures that, like the book of James warns us, praise and cursing aren't pouring out of the exact same mouth. Through this metamorphosis, the world's exhausting form of self-will is entirely replaced by the beautiful divine form of God's will.
To wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to challenge your daily walk. Are you merely visiting God's love, or are you permanently abiding, Menei, in it? The journey of the true Christian is really about moving from that exhausting, double-minded instability into a permanent, beautiful state of fidelity. I genuinely hope this sparks a desire in you to seek that perfect, abiding love today. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep seeking that permanent state of fidelity.